Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call this to order, but we're going to do a little deviation from our regular schedule tonight. We have Judge Kirk Daly to swear in some of our council people. So those who were elected, if you would step down and greet the judge, Matt and Skip and Holly.
Do you have anybody taking official photographs, or do you mind
if you want to step up, get a picture, that's fine. We'll allow a little flexibility tonight. Come on up.
Good afternoon. I, Skip Stevens.
I, Skip Stevens.
Swear that I will support the Constitution.
Swear that I will support the Constitution
Of the United States.
of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Iowa.
And the Constitution of the State of Iowa.
And that I will faithfully and impartially,
And faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
of the city of Ottumwa,
of the city of Ottumwa,
Walpole County, Iowa,
Walpole County, Iowa,
is now or hereinafter required by law.
is now and hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
Victor, you're going to be in every one of these, just so you know.
He wants me.
I, Matt Hawley, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office
discharge all the duties of the office
of council member of the city of Ottumwa, Iowa,
of council member of the city of Ottumwa,
Walpole County,
Walpole County,
now as hereinafter required by law.
now is hereinafter required by law.
Congratulations. I, Holly Bird,
I, Holly Bird,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of the office of council member
discharge all the duties of the council member, all the duties of council member
of the city of Ottumwa,
of the city of Ottumwa
in Walpole County, Iowa,
and Walpole County, Iowa,
is now or hereinafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. me, I, Tom Lazio,
I, Tom Walter,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of the office of Mayor of the City of Ottumwa,
of the office of Mayor of the City of Ottumwa,
in Wapco County, Iowa,
in Humboldt County, Iowa,
as now or hereinafter required by law.
now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Judge Daly for making himself available for us. And Holly, we look forward to having you join the council on January 2nd. And we're pleased to have you on our team. So thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call the Ottumwa Board of Health meeting to order and remind those in the audience to please turn your phones to silent or vibrate. Let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amanda, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Myers,
Here.
Councilmember Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Stevens,
Here.
Councilmember Strebe,
Here.
Councilmember Dalby,
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Approve the minutes for meeting number 8 on November 21st, 2017 is presented. Recommendation, approve the minutes.
Is there a motion?
Move the approval of the minutes.
Second. Thank you.
Councilmember Myers,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set to consider condemnation of the structures on the lot located at 209 to 11 West 5th Street. I received no objections on this item.
Okay. Good evening, Jody Gates. And before we start, I should recognize that Jody this will be her last official meeting as the Director of the Department of Health Inspections and Solid Waste. I want to, on behalf of the council, thank you for 28 years of service to the city and to the community. We're going to miss you, but we'll see you occasionally as you're going to be involved with us as we go on. So thank you, Jody. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. The property at 209 to 11 West 5th was placarded May 6, 2015. This is a picture of it, and I was prepared to come to this meeting and request that the Board of Health condemn this structure. But in the last 30 days, the owners, Mark and Mary Welch, have done a tremendous amount of work to the property. Building Inspector Doug Mays indicated this afternoon that they weren't quite finished. They were nearly to the point where the placard could be removed from this property. And so what I'm going to request of you this evening is that you continue this hearing until January 2nd, 2018, which will give them the opportunity to finish the project and complete it and have the placard removed.
Okay, this is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this issue, now's the time to step to the microphone. Would you please give your name and address?
Mark Welch, 209 West 5th. Yeah, we're planning on being finished, and we're a very short term away from. We redid the electrical, we replaced the windows. It was originally placarded because we had a tenant that we evicted, and after not paying rent for 4 months. And they chose to break out all the windows. And that caused a nuisance. And at that time, we were out of state, family emergency, so we were not able to attend to it immediately. But we have replaced all the windows and done a tremendous amount of work on the property.
And do you believe it'll be reasonable to be completed by the 2nd of January?
Unforeseen events, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Condemn the structures located at 209 to 211 West 5th Street, order prompt demolition, removal, and leveling of the lot, and direct all costs attendant to such actions, including administrative costs, to be assessed against property taxes and/or collected from the owner or owners thereof. Recommendation, approve the condemnation of the structures located at 209 to 211 West 5th Street.
Is there a motion?
Well, Mayor, point of clarification, do we need to offer an amendment to it?
You can make a motion to approve a continuance and not make a motion on the recommendation as presented.
Okay, I would make a motion to offer a continuance of January 3rd. Is that what you said?
Second.
Second.
I would second that.
Okay. Okay, motion is to continue until January 2nd of 18. Made and seconded. Any other questions for Jody? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank
Very
you.
much. Thank you, Jody. Is there any other business for the Board of Health? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Now we'll move into the regular scheduled city council meeting. Take the roll again, please.
Councilmember Strebe?
Here.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Myers?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes. Here.
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from special meeting number 40 on December 1st and regular meeting number 41 on December 5th, 2017 is presented. Acknowledge November financial statement and payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Appointment of Ashley Norrell to the Ottumwa Housing Authority, term to expire November 22nd, 2019. Purchase of 4 in-car camera systems from L3 Mobile Vision in the amount of $15,522.80. Resolution number 264, 2017, setting the date for a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 722 Baker. Resolution number 268, 2017, setting the date for a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 308 North Graves. Beer and/or liquor applications for Hy-Vee Food Store number 1, 1025 North Quincy, Fairway Stores number 648, 1325 Avia Road, Dollar General Store number 7179, 721 North Quincy, Dollar General number 2898, 921 East Main Street, Cedar Creek Golf Course, 13120 Angle Road with outdoor service area, all applications pending final inspections.
Move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Item C, I need a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So
Your Honor, I
moved.
would move the approval of the agenda with the exclusion of item G1.
And that item is the property at 1230 South Sheridan. Okay.
Yes.
And who seconded?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Any questions, any discussion? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you. Item D is report from city officers, boards, commissions, and committees, and I'd like to ask that Jody Gates start us off with a presentation about the placarded house stories.
Every year I bring to you success stories. These are placarded houses that the city has obtained title to and sold over the years. And so I want to start at the beginning with 413 Pocahontas and the before picture. This house was placarded December 21st, 2015 due to dilapidation, and the city acquired it and in March of 2017, and we sold it to John and Noma Woodenberg, and they paid a best bid price of $8,353. They are making a lot of progress on the house. Switch to the second picture because you can see that there's a pretty dramatic improvement on the exterior of the house. This house is still placarded. They continue to work on it, and we expect that it's going to be completed in 2018. The next one is 211 Green Street. This is obviously the before picture. It was placarded March 9th, 2016, also due to dilapidation. We tried to sell this house a number of times and really thought that we were going to end up demolishing it because we couldn't get anyone interested in purchasing it. And finally, Mark Jansen offered us $500 for the house. And since purchasing the property July 11th, 2017, Mr. Jansen has completely remodeled it, including removing the front porch, and there was a rear addition, and that has been taken off. They installed a new roof, secured the foundation, they installed a new furnace, and made many other repairs, and this house was released on November 17th of this year. Our third house is 128 South Milner. It was placarded May 20th, 2015, and that was because someone was living in it without utilities. The city acquired this house December 22nd, 2016, and we sold it April 19th of this year to Richard and Kelly Slaughter for the best bid price of $10,777. The new owners completely remodeled this house, and they started by removing the plaster. They took the interior back to the studs throughout the house so that they could open up the inside and create a modern floor plan. The exterior of the property looks entirely different, and the house was released for occupancy August 11th of this year. And then our last property, 233 South Ward. It was placarded July 15th, 2015 due to dilapidation, and the city acquired it June 9th, 2016 and sold it August 16th to Eric Gonzalez Chavez for the best bid price of $1,000. And since that time, the owner has completely remodeled the outside. He continues to work on the interior, and we expect the house should be completed next year. In 2017, we have sold 9 houses for $64,238 and 7 vacant lots. We've demolished another 16 houses this year. We have 4 more under contract for demolition, and the number of placarded houses on our list fell from 147 in October to 130 November 30th as a result of the number of houses that we've demolished, and also the number that are being repaired and released. So this is a terrific success story. We've presented these every year for the last 5 years or so, and it's good to see the number of houses that people are repairing and getting occupied again and increasing the tax rolls.
Very good. Thank you, Jody. Are there any questions or comments for Jody? Thank you.
I might add that that's probably not a total list. I can think of at least 2 or 3 more that you don't have that you've done that with.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that there are a number of them. We just, we choose a certain amount that we know that we can show kind of a progress and the wow factor as far as what they look like before and after.
Yeah.
Great job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to refer to City Administrator Andy Morris, and he's got a couple of items he wants to talk about.
Thank you, Mayor. The two items I want to discuss briefly tonight actually are set up for our next meeting on the 2nd of January 2018. Both of them relate to the issue of public safety. First of all is the transition to the 12-hour shifts in the police department. As you may recall from the previous meeting, that was a staff summary that we were looking to draft and get that available. We did not get that ready in time. It did not make the packet. That was not intentional at all. It was simply an item that, as we were adding the agenda, was not added. I apologize for that. That will be added. It'll become part of the council packet again at the January 2nd meeting. The other item that I want to bring to your attention relates to the fire department, and this is Chief Miller. Chief Miller isn't with us tonight. Again, this is a setup to the meeting on the 2nd of January. As many of you are aware, the chief has been very involved in the fireworks legislation and its impact upon the city of Ottumwa and Wapello County, for that matter as well. At that meeting on the 2nd, he is going to be present to, quite frankly, put into context a statewide meeting he attended, I believe, a week ago. In fact, if council members will check, that was supposed to be attached, that the email message that he put together, that was attached to the summary from the staff meeting this morning. If for some reason you don't have that document, please let me know and I will get that to you. He will talk about that. He will also talk about the EMS services. Some of you may or may not recall back this past fall, Councilman Albee, the mayor, myself, the finance director, Bob Jay, Tony Miller, hopefully I'm not missing anyone else, Corey Binge with the fire department. We made a trip to Fort Dodge, Iowa, and started studying the issue of EMS service. The chief has attended another statewide meeting that puts that into context and whether or not that is something that we would transition to, EMS service. I will tell you, based on his initial comments with me, that's something from a financial perspective that does not look like that is viable, but I want him to put some more sustenance behind that issue. And when that report is finished, obviously I want he and I to go ahead and sign that document and put it in front of council. He will be talking about both those items. To my knowledge, Mayor, neither one of those, obviously the transition to the 12-hour shifts will take legislative action. The pieces that Chief Miller are going to reference, the fireworks and EMS, that is simply an update and does not require legislative action. That's all I have, unless you or council members have any questions or comments.
Any questions for Andy?
Yeah, one comment.
Yes.
I just will not have an opportunity after this to talk with my colleagues on the council. But I would sure ask you to really consider what the administrator just mentioned and what Mr. Miller, Chief Miller, will bring up on the 2nd on EMS, because if we in fact get involved taking over EMS from a third largest business in this city that pays $1 million in property tax, please make sure you study it well before you give that up. Thank you.
A point well taken.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, item E is opportunity for anybody in the audience to address an item on the agenda. Is there anyone that wants to address a particular item? Okay, we'll move on.
Request from Board of Supervisors to waive the building permit fee on the Wapello County Secondary Road Building Remodeling Project. Recommendation, waive the building permit fee in the amount of $1,320.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second. Good evening. Go ahead, Jody.
Thank you, Mayor. Supervisor Parker asked the city to consider waiving this building permit fee. It's for the remodeling project on the secondary roads building. And the project isn't expanding the building, but just updating it and modernizing it.
Any questions or comments for Jody? I think this again shows good cooperation to work with the county board, so you're recommending it.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no questions, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Creation of 2 additional patrol supervisor positions. Recommendation, approve the creation of 2 additional patrol supervisor positions effective July 1, 2018.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Chief. You have the floor.
Good evening, the council and mayor. In order to provide adequate patrol supervision when the police department moves to the 12-hour shifts, the police department is requesting the creation of 2 additional patrol supervisors. These will be sergeant positions. This will help alleviate overtime and will add flexibility to the shifts as the supervisors can also fill in on patrol.
Okay. Questions, comments for the chief?
I have some questions, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Councilman Rowe.
First, Chief, I kind of want to go backwards a little bit in time to a meeting that you, myself, Councilman Dalby, the administrator, and I believe the mayor and a couple other officers were at the police department going over the 12-hour staffing. And I believe it was 14 officers that you had that would, and 8 sergeants. Is that correct? For going to the 12-hour in the ideal situation.
Yes, in the ideal, that's with these 2 being promoted.
Right, right. Yeah. And so effective July 1st of 2018, how many actual officers will you, again, I know this is barring injury and leave and all of that stuff. How many officers will you have on staff at that time? Because I know you got 3 more that are potentially going to be on at that point.
They'll be coming out of the academy and they should be getting out on their own around that time.
So how many physical patrol officers, not sergeants, but patrol officers will you have?
So we had 14, that'll just add 3. So we'll have 17. Now, if of those 17, I want to promote 2 to be sergeants. So 14 again, 16. I'm sorry, 15 patrolmen with the addition of these 2.
Okay.
On the same page.
So, and obviously all of council wasn't involved in that. So could you take just a couple of minutes and explain the rationale behind having these 2 extra sergeants?
It's gonna be a little bit tough here because if you remember, we talked about it for a couple hours.
Right, right.
And and at that time I have a big magnetic board in my conference room with every officer listed and showing it. We went through scenarios to where I think we all agreed that we needed those 2 positions created. Short story. When we go to 12-hour shifts, we'll call them units. On days, we'll have two units, Unit A and Unit B. There'll be, like on days, there'll be 3 officers and 1 sergeant on each one. One of those sergeants takes a day off. We'll have 1 sergeant that can take his place for that day off. He's kind of like a floating sergeant. However, if that happens, then we don't have any more room for anybody else to take the day off, the other sergeant on the other unit to take off. Do you remember how that looked on the board?
Yeah, I do.
It's kind of difficult to show you with 40 officers up there. So that's what we're looking at. The good thing about having these guys as sergeants is they also function as patrol officers. So on each unit, I'd like to have 2 sergeants and the officers. By having these positions created, if an officer takes a day off, it doesn't matter because the sergeants also work as patrolmen. So that extra sergeant will just fill in as a patrolman. They're patrolmen anyway. Even our supervisors of each shift are patrolmen. That's the issue that we have right now. We're so short on people that the sergeant isn't supervising. He's actually going out and just answering calls. And we're not real happy with that situation right now because the sergeant is supposed to be watching his guys and making sure things are being handled correctly, but he's out answering calls, so he's doing his own thing. So I don't know if that helps any.
Yeah, it does. So we mentioned that we have 15 in the perfect world that we're going to have in July. Is that what's actually going to be there? Because I know that you have some folks that are off right now.
Right, and that's a crystal ball thing. I don't know how many we're going to have there. That's why when we started this 12-hour shift and we're going to move to that in November, December, and then it got moved to January, I don't know how many people I'm going to have. I know that if I've got 14 working right now, I may have a couple more in a couple months, or I may have several less. I don't know. It's just like the guy that the 4 that we just hired. We thought in July, we're going to have 4 coming on and we're going to be up to 38. We're going to be all good. And then we found out he's been deployed for a year.
Right.
It's going to be up 2 years or more before he ever gets back to the street and starts answering calls now, based on the 1 year off and his acclimation time and then going through the academy. So it's really difficult to say we're going to have this many people. Now, when we started going to the 12-hour shifts and meeting with the union, I kept myself, City Administrator Morris, Johnny Keith, we're all saying you cannot count on those people being there. And that's what's happened now. We planned on going to 12-hour shifts in January, but in the meantime, someone's going to be down off the roster for personal reasons. And it's just really difficult to say how many people we're going to have. So I'm going to be authorized at 42. I figure I'll always have 40. Once we get everybody hired and everything, you just figure you're going to be down 2 all the time.
Right. So I guess all of this question that I've asked goes to the point that, you know, we had spoke last week or last council meeting about the addition of these new officers and the movement to the 12-hour shifts. And really, July might be hard to, that might be a date that potentially could be hard to hit because of that 12 hours, or because of the manpower that we have. So, and I think we all, at least everybody that was in the room at the time, agreed in principle that this would be good when we had the 12-hour shift where we're fully staffed and everything. But I guess where my problem is, and I don't know where anybody else sits on this, is that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse on these promotions, and the fact that we don't even know if we're going to have enough officers in July to move over to the 12-hour shifts. That's the hopes everybody has.
You're correct. That's why I'm not asking them. I'm not going to promote them right now. I'm waiting until we've moved it, until we finally go to the 12-hour shifts is what I'm asking permission to do. Just trying to move this forward because a lot of people are, as far as testing, the 12-hour shift has really caused a lot of hubbub around the department because people are looking at the 12-hour shifts. I have investigators now wanting to go to patrol and all that. So people are trying to plan. But yeah, I would only do this if we say, okay, now we've got enough people to go to the 12-hour shifts. And when we do that, to make it successful, I need these 2 positions.
Okay, but, and I'm not sure if you're the person who wrote this or not, but that's not what this reads. This reads that regardless, it's going to be effective on July 1st, 2018.
Okay.
So I guess that's where my problem is if we have to push that date to August, September, October to move to the 12-hour shifts, which I sure hope we don't have to, just for the officers' sake.
Right.
Then we've increased our payroll by $8,000 when we really didn't need to do that.
That's correct.
So I guess I don't know whether this, I would like to hear from what other council members think about this before we move any further on this particular issue.
Okay, let's go down the row. Matt, are you?
Yeah, yeah, I was kind of of the same opinion. You know, we did talk about this, and honestly, you know, if that's what you think we need, then, you know, by all means, bring it before us. The thing that I kind of was having a hard time with is, you know, the uncertainty. Last council meeting, we heard that, and it wasn't intentional on the part of the council. We, you know, maybe put a time limit on it if it wasn't, you know, feasible, like Councilman Rose said. So what we're saying is, you know, we would expect the resolution to extend that to whatever time is necessary to make sure this isn't set up to fail. But when we got to looking at this, you know, at least when I looked at it, I got thinking, well, you know, we're setting another hard date, just like the council did, which is maybe not a good idea. Maybe we should just leave it open to when, you know, you feel you have the officers, and then we promote at that point to not do the budgetary issues and cause those, like Councilman Rose said. So, you know, I think we're all on board with doing it. I just think maybe if we maybe amend or open it up to be effective, you know, when, you know, you feel you have the officers, might be a better, you know, better avenue. I don't know, but I'd be in favor of waiting until that time for budgetary reasons.
Okay. Skip?
That's my feeling exactly. If you promoted a sergeant today, is he ready to go on the street? Or is there a training period for a sergeant as well?
There's a very short training period, like 2 weeks.
Thank you.
We have officers that are already functioning as sergeants, but they're officers. They've been around a long time. And another thing on this is I've already submitted my budget. So in July, as part of our budget, I budgeted these positions. So in July, I'm not coming in and saying, now we need to amend our budget. So we're just trying to stay out in front of the game. And actually, we're trying to show everyone that we are not dragging our feet going towards the 12-hour shifts. I hear that constantly, that we're trying to drag our feet so we can't go these 12-hour shifts. We're going above and beyond. We've made all kinds of plans. We were prepared to do it in January. We're actually preparing to do it because of the 60-day mandate that we have. We're going to do it in December. So the union now has voted. I know they've talked to you guys about that. They want to delay this now until July. But if we delay this until July, I would have to come back and do a budget amendment. Just throw that out there for what it's worth.
Victor?
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Chief. That was excellent information. And I too, like Councilman Rowe, sort of read this as, if we move these patrol officers to supervisors, then that sort of takes away the first part of this, and that's getting to those 12-hour shifts. So I guess with the July 1st deadline, something that, like you said, is a crystal ball and we can't really put our finger on, then maybe we ought to make some sort of amendment to this existing resolution.
Councilman Myers? Yes, two things. I would offer an amendment, and it could be worded, I think, such as these officers would be appointed to sergeant positions at such time as the 12-hour shift would be going into effect. And then to follow that, I offer that as an amendment. But also, I'm curious, Administrator Morris, since this is a recommendation to do this, so the chief's explanation, everything, all of this was okay with you?
Yes, and the chief and I have discussed this rather extensively. And I one other item, and I don't know whether I'm speaking for the chief on this or not, but I do echo the comment regarding whether or not the city may in fact be delaying this. Is the chief indicated, these two additional sergeants then would be, well, they're primarily patrol staff, so they would matriculate then and undertake their sergeant's responsibility at the time that you attain the corpus of employees to go to the 12-hour shift. But one of the items I would just like to mention to put this in perspective, and I know staff has talked about this a great deal, we want to move to the 12-hour shifts. And quite frankly, one of the items that I know the chief and I and Joni Keith and Bob J have talked about is we need to see whether it's going to work or not work. To be brutally honest, and one of the ways you're going to find out whether it works or not work is to undertake it and implement it instead of talking about it theoretically. But it is something we do need to move on. We've explained ad nauseum the fact that you could lose an officer and there are various other items that would cause that census of employees to fall. This does need to be implemented, but I agree completely with the chief that when the requisite number of patrol staff is in place, we need to move pretty quickly and implement that.
So am I clear in understanding you're offering an amendment then?
Yes.
Is there a second to that amendment? Bob made the offer that at such time as the 12-hour shift is implemented, so.
Second.
Okay, Victor, second. Any other questions about that?
Your Honor, I'd make a comment, just a point, not really a point of clarification on Robert's Rules of Order, but I think it's important to sit out there and kind of set the record straight on the dragging our feet stuff. I think the council was getting a little nervous because, we made this, this mandate or directive and put the wrong time limit on it. And then we were told later, last council meeting, that we needed to slow down because we're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be set up to fail. In January is the deadline. And so we're sitting here thinking, we need a resolution put in front of us so we can, reverse course or give you ample time. And if that doesn't happen by January, I'm certainly sure you can understand why the council is going to be saying now, you've been mandated to do this. We agree we need to push back and there needs to be time for you guys to do your work, and we don't have a resolution. And so that's why maybe we were a little bit nervous, but I think if the timeline, will work out and we can do this amendment, I think we're all going to be okay. But we were getting kind of nervous thinking we're forcing these guys to do something that's going to be set up to fail. We do not want to do that. So that may be where that, dragging our feet, comment or inference came from. Not going to the 12-hour shifts, but not getting us a resolution so we can reverse course and do it the right way. That was my concern anyway. So for what it's worth, I wanted to load that out there.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, just to clarify as well, again reiterate what Councilman Dalby said, I think you can see from the record then there has not been a hesitation on behalf of the chief then for hiring additional personnel. Council, to be clear though, council has authorized the chief to move on those, and he's moved as quickly as we can. And as we talked about, hiring patrol staff is a little bit more complicated than hiring, say, a clerk at a drugstore. The civil service exam takes a little bit more time, but I commend the chief anyway for undertaking that effort to bring additional staff on board.
And if I could make one more comment,
Sure.
and I guess where one of the reservations that I had in reading this, and again, this goes back to not knowing exactly where the staffing level's at now and where it will be in July. What my fear was in having a hard date of July that these folks would transfer over to sergeant was that we wouldn't have enough people, number one, to implement the 12-hour shifts, and we're bringing 3 new officers on, and then we're pulling 2 of them out as sergeants, so that only really net gains us 1 patrol officer. So that's where my concern was having that hard date in there, and then we somehow end up shooting ourselves in the foot somewhere down the road.
All right, good discussion, good clarification. Are you ready to vote on the amendment? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's, the regular motion.
Motion as amended.
As amended, thank you.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification, Chief, and thanks to the council for giving it serious thought. Okay, we're moving to section G, and the amendment or the motion made by Councilman Dalby was to pull G1, so we'll move to G2.
Excuse me, Mayor. Point of clarification. Could I ask Councilman Dalby why it was pulled? Why?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that, Bob. My concern was, and why I jumped out there, and I know it caught the council kind of off guard, in talking with Jody Gates and kind of it being, something she put forward would possibly be in the future. And we got lots in Ottumwa that are, maybe highly desirable. We just don't time them right when we go to up for sale. So it'd be kind of neat to have, I would think, to put forth a policy or give staff time to put forth a policy that kind of explains how we delineate between properties that, may be of little use other than to the property owner who's adjacent, or the properties like this one on the corner lot that might be buildable. And I just didn't want to rush into this because I think, we have some good lots here in Ottumwa, and I know we don't want to mow them and it's an expense, but, if we can ultimately, pad our housing program and get some, single family homes on these nicer lots, rather than just attach them, maybe we should hold off and wait for a policy from staff. That's why I took that off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, good clarification, thank you. We'll move to H, resolutions.
Resolution number 259, 2017, expressing appreciation to Bob Myers for his dedicated service as city council member to the citizens of the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 259, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Is it okay for me to vote?
I think so.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
And at this time, I'd like to ask Bob to step to the front of the railing, and we'll present him with a resolution. Resolution 259, 2017. Resolution of appreciation to Bob Myers for his dedicated service as city council member to the citizens of Ottumwa, Iowa. Whereas Bob Myers began his first term of office to the city council on January 3rd, 2006 through December 31st, 2017. Whereas during his tenure in office, in addition to serving on the city council, he served on numerous boards, commissions, and activities. Myers has improved the position of the city council and enhanced and affirmed the collaborative spirit of many city efforts.
And whereas the city council wishes to acknowledge the diligence and dedication with which Bob Myers has represented the people of Ottumwa, Iowa. Now therefore resolved that the city council, on behalf of all the citizens, do commend, honor, and express gratitude and appreciation to Bob Myers for his years of outstanding and commendable service to the city of Ottumwa. It is therefore resolved that a copy of this resolution with the seal of the city of Ottumwa will be affixed and shall be presented to Bob Myers. This resolution shall become part of the proceedings of the City Council of Ottumwa, passed and approved the 19th day of December 2017. Bob, it's a great deal of honor that I say thank you for all those years of service. Thank you. You said it. I do want to say though, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate this, but it's really for 12 years. I think the citizens, as the mayor spoke, really underestimate sometimes the city employees, the staff that we have, and some of them pick on me once in a while, but overall, in 12 years, I mean, it's a credit, a lot of the accomplishments that I've seen over the 12 years or two are employees. So thank you very much.
Okay, let's resume the regular schedule.
Resolution number 265, 2017, accepting a gift of real estate from Chinsia Ray Roberts located at 1346 North Elm Street, Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 265, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Jody. You have the floor again.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You may recognize this property at 1346 North Elm because the city condemned it recently. It's owned by Chinsia Roberts, and she's donated it to the city. She could not demolish the property. And so now we will have to make a decision about whether or not we want to the city proceed with demolition, or if we would instead like to sell the property and see if we have anybody who's interested in repairing it and do so in a timely manner, in which case we'll need to come back to you to remove the condemnation recommendation. We would like to have you approve this resolution and accept the piece of real estate, and then we'll make plans for it in the future.
Okay, are there any questions for Jody? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 266, 2017, fixing an amount for abating a nuisance against certain properties in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 266, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jody.
We have 9 properties, 2 demolitions and 7 nuisances on this resolution, and they total more than $33,000. We've billed the property owners, and these are remaining unpaid, so we would want to assess them to the real estate taxes.
Any questions for Jody? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 267, 2017, assessing 2017 weed mowing charges against certain lots in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 267, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Go ahead.
And this is our annual weed mowing resolution and assessment. We've billed property owners that are on the spreadsheet attached to the resolution, and these remain unpaid. We might have had a couple more payments come in today that reduce the total number of properties on this staff summary. But right when we prepared the staff summary, the total charges were over $45,000. We will send them over to the county treasurer, and then they will be assessed to the property taxes next year.
Very good. Any questions for Jody? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 271, 2017, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the North Side Interceptor Repairs Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 271, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Larry. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The Engine Department recommended awarding only line items 1 through 4 to the low bidder, Iowa Bridge Culvert, LC. These 4 line items consist of replacing an existing broken sluice gate on the north side gate well structure and a new stainless steel gate, associated work and repair. The gate was purchased and stored on site and let that way in the bid. Unit prices for repairing the river wall, concrete, and converting the interceptor gate wells to manholes came in significantly over the budget. We'd made a decision at that time not to award those items and pull them and then let them at a later date. That work would be in association with removing 3 out-of-service gates. The project was awarded August 1st, 2017 to the City Council meeting in an amount of $79,250 to Iowa Bridge Culvert, and they have completed the above reference work according to the plans and specifications, and this will approve change order 1 and authorize payment and release of all retainages. Change order 1 decreases the contract sum by $17,345 for the reduction of quantity adjustments. The final amount due is $2,620.25.
Any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 273, 2017, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the Quincy Avenue resurfacing project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 273, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
This project consists of a profile milling of HMA overlay on Quincy Avenue from Albia Road to Highway 34. A storm system was installed to separate sewers and improve the drainage system. The project was awarded on June 17, 2014, City Council meeting in the amount of $1,304,273.36 to Norris Asphalt Paving of Ottumwa, Iowa. And they have completed the above reference work according to the plans and specifications, and this will approve and authorize payment and release of all retainages. Change order 1 decreased the contract sum by $2,029.69 for a reduction in total quantities.
Okay, any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 274, 2017, approving change order number 1 for the Canteen Alley Phase 2. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 274, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
The City Council approved the contract to Turner Concrete's construction of Ottumwa, Iowa through Resolution 171, 2017 on August 1st, 2017 for the Canteen Alley Phase 2 project. Change order 1 consists of added concrete work on Market Street, relocating 80 foot of water service to the principal building, waterproofing, replacement of unsuitable fill and quantity adjustments, and adding alternate bid item number 2. The final change order quantities and project closeout will be brought before the council at a later time. I would like to go through a few points on this. Just to kind of show the project overview. And that's really the whole project kind of simplified as far as the new sanitary sewer, new storm sewer, and then stormwater BMPs, including the previous brick pavers and then the decorative art. That's the only thing left to install is the art. All the foundations are in, and that is actually scheduled, if things work out, shipping works out, to be installed by the end of the year. And then we just relisted the funding sources. And then just as a recap, this was a joint project between Main Street Legacy Foundation. Genus was the landscape architect that done the design work and the majority of the contract management. We did the on-site inspection when they kind of run out of inspection fees. Garden and Associates did the site work as far as the underground and utility systems. And then, of course, part of that grant was managed by the Area 15, and then we inspected it. This is what I really wanted to show you, kind of the before and after. You can see the alley looking east. You can see this condition of the existing pavement and different repairs and stuff as you go down the alley toward the canteen. We kind of want to show what is involved. Sometimes people lose track of what we have underground. This was a particularly difficult corridor. Not only is it very narrow to work, required the contractor to lease and rent different equipment that was specialized, basically zero-turn backhoes that can work within such a narrow confined, especially when you have buildings on both sides. And that's just the sanitary sewer and some of the laterals coming in as they lay. On the bottom right-hand corner, you can see where different utilities that they had to work around, and that's really what added a lot of the difficulty in the work in this project. Was there was so much power underground and communications. In order to keep the buildings active and all of them, we had to work with the utilities, which they were very good on this project, required them to come in sometimes on weekends, work longer days than they normally do to keep our contractors working. Again, this is just another shot of as we're bringing the storm along. Along this line, you can see different power lines that was laid. There's a lot of base mounted transformers that feed these buildings in this area. This is just the connection of a storm manhole, just kind of how it goes in. This is just a couple really good shots of how underneath the pervious pavers that you actually build an area for the water to penetrate and store. This rock's approximately 3 foot deep, and that's where the water is actually retained. This was designed, I believe it was for the first 2 inches of runoff will be absorbed into that rock, and then it releases at a slower rate. It has several benefits as far as cleaning the water, increasing water quality, and reducing the peak on your storm events. This is the finished project. We've got three different shots of the decorative pavers. Those are, as I said earlier, pervious, and they're also decorative from soldier courses and pattern they used. These are one of the items. When we got into it, the fill was just had a lot of rubble in it, and we also, it was unsuitable from a compaction standpoint. We didn't want to have settlement issues when we spent this kind of money, so that was one of the bigger items where we had to bring in actually a suitable fill that could be compacted. Just another shot. This is the very beginning of the project, and you can see what we had to keep active from different communications and power. The utility companies was pretty good about coming in and stringing overhead temporary power off of parking ramp and off of the existing buildings, and that would have to be kind of leapfrogged as they went down through and built sections, so it difficult from phasing. Just another shot of the water service tie-in. That's one of the items right here. This water service ended up being directly over the sanitary sewer. So in order to keep those buildings active, we had to install that. That was one of the add-ons in the change order. So we actually just moved it clear to south of the right-of-way. And then once this was active, connections was done on the weekend when the businesses were not active. And then we could come back in and do sanitary and storm past this section. This would be the east end. And this is just a shot of as they're pouring through and doing street patching and finishing up the last of the concrete by the Market Street. And we just listed some of the bigger items that are in the change order. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions.
Any comments or questions for Larry?
I would just comment that looks amazing now. It's a definite addition to the downtown area.
It was challenging, and it did turn out very nice. I mean, the contractors, they definitely had a challenge in getting in and actually keeping everything active. They did not tear out any communications, but that slows down the work. That's one of the reasons it becomes so expensive, is they just can't even come close to their normal production per foot if they're laying pipe or whatever they're doing.
Larry, what was the funding source?
We had 543,000. It's a IEDA CDBG grant that went through Main Street. And it's part of some of the funding that come through for the facade and the green roofs. The city put in 100,000. We had 80,000 from the CIP and 20,000 from loss for storm and sanitary.
Thank you.
Then I do need to add, and Legacy is paying for the artwork and some of the other amenities.
So another good cooperative effort.
It was, yes, it was a very good effort. There's no way that we would have allocated our street funds to do this type of project.
Thank you. Matt?
Larry, I just got a quick comment. I always appreciate the visual here in the presentation, but what I like about this one is when you tie the change order amounts to actual descriptions of what changed, because sometimes it's hard, even for us, we have to go ask, but for the public's sake, you know, they see a change order, an increase or a decrease. They don't have a clue what that's for. They just assume that we're going to make a good decision on it. But tying it to actual visual aids, I appreciate you making these presentations and making them so accurate and detailed.
See, and what we have when you get into areas that's basically, you know, put in the 1880s, depending on where you're at down there, you've got a lot of different utilities that's been put in over that time period and abandoned in place. And so that's another item that becomes part of, you know, your existing soils as you remove them. So it's really hard to take that out and put it in. It's the same thing we run into when we did the alley by the Jefferson Street parking lot. Just unsuitable fill that there's no way you can compact it.
Right.
I would just share with the council, I walked that alley several times while the construction crews were working, and Bob Brown, the general contractor, was very complimentary of our city staff, both the inspectors and Larry and his team, in terms of getting the project. And as he's just mentioned, it was very complicated because of all the communications and other utilities in that alley, but he was very pleased, and he said that the city was great to work with, and I think that's a real compliment to all of your staff, so please tell them that.
There was a lot of staff involved. For instance, on the lateral, anytime you go through on a sanitary sewer, there's a lot more services than are actually active. Our sewer crew was able to come up with some of the camera equipment that we bought and run back in there as they found them. So Kevin and his crew was on call, and part of the thing that we did, we made ourselves available, and they would come in at relatively short time and determine if it was active and needed to be hooked up in order to keep the sanitary sewer portion moving forward. And that's just some of the flexibility you have to keep it, I'd say, more affordable.
Okay, are you ready to vote then? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 275, 2017, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the Jefferson Street Bridge Repairs Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 275, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Larry, go ahead.
This project consisted of repairing sprawled and deteriorated concrete, replacement of bridge deck expansion joints, repair of painting of existing structural steel in the vicinity of the joint replacements for the Jefferson Street Bridge. The project was awarded February 7th, 2017 City Council meeting in the amount of $1,479,894 to Kramer and Associates of Grimes, Iowa. And they have completed the above reference work according to the plans and specifications. Change order 1 addresses a decrease in the contract quantities totaling $6,740.50 and reimbursement of $1,969.09 for damage to a security camera that was mounted on one of the piers, for a total net decrease in the contract sum for $8,709.59. So the final amount due is $71,688.59. We wanted to go ahead on the same thing because this is such an unusual project and put down a PowerPoint kind of to show you. And we kind of use the same format as far as just kind of laying out initial work and the funding sources. This was a big project, so you can see that we took it out of 3 different CIPs to come up with the total. And again, the award amount. What you see on all the columns is a lot of surface cracking. There's different methods to repair that depending on if it's delaminated or it's just cracked. This is a partial depth repair. You can see where they actually chisel out the concrete, create a straight edge. They have to get underneath the rebar, and it is a specific distance in order for the concrete to adhere to the rebar. And then there's some bonding agents that go in to help bond the new concrete and extend the life of that column. This is just part of the form system they use, some of the scaffolding, how they get to these areas. A lot of times this stuff is done in an area where it's really unnoticed. There's not a lot of traffic through that area. Again, just another example of partial depth repairs. You can see where we're on kind of the north side of the bridge. That was one of the entrances that we had to replace when they went through. And that's the finished repair when they're done. If you remember, we gave a presentation when we first evaluated this bridge, and we were looking based on its age and its structure type, if we would get another 20 years out of the superstructure. Once the superstructure is done, of course, that's going to be a complete bridge replacement. And we were looking somewhere around 20 years out for that. We'll have to judge it at that point. Again, just another area where we've done that type of repair, the after effects, and again, once completed. That's the actual joint. One of the issues we had with those, last time that we filled and replaced just this material, we were able to find the original manufacturer, and they were able to find the original dies and extrude them. This time that didn't happen, so we ended up having to cut out and go to a whole new joint type. That's just the old ones once they took them out. You can kind of see where they even have to take out the burial rail and then the deck, a specific distance on each side of the joint. That's the new joint, just laying before it was installed, and this is in the process of being installed. We got some later ones that show how it's actually cut out and reinforced. That is how they actually put the break in the deck for allowing expansion and contraction. That's the completed. But you can see where this is a smaller joint. It's not like one of those DS Browns, the big ones that are about a foot wide, 1.5 feet. You can see where they have to tie in new bar. They have to, as they cut this out, preserve the existing bar in the deck in order to have the structural strength they need to span that section. And then we just wanted to show some of the rust that we had. We did some web repairs. And of course, what they did is they come in and they blasted. It varied, but say approximately 8 feet away from each of the joints, each direction. And then they would put on some primer basically, and then paint it. And this is just pictures of some rockers. One of these rockers was seized, and they finally was able to get that out. That will help extend the life of those joints to where the expansion happens across all of the joints instead of just one, and it exceeds what its design for or gap was. Just more pictures of where we have webbing that's actually rusted, and that was caused from the joints actually being open, which allows salt and material to drop down on the steel, and that's really hard on built-up plate type beams. Here's the primer as they start putting back in and cleaning up. And there's the finished kind of project when we're done. It makes it look relatively new, and it will extend it. Now we're completed. That was more just a visual. It's hard to understand unless you're there and looking at it, how complicated those can be.
Any questions?
I got a comment. Sure. Again, nice job, Larry. And it's nice to see, how fully painted superstructure ties into the, overall life and strength of a bridge. It's nice to see that that's clarified there. One thing I picked up, you said we have about 20 years, and then we'll review the superstructure life at that point. Based on what they've seen on this, we're going to probably make 20 years, and
that's the initial estimate. This is one of the bridges because of its structure. If you remember the Minnesota interstate bridge that collapsed, the center span is built the same as far as just two built up truss sections. So there is a special inspection where they inspect those gussets every year, and that's to try to determine the rate of deterioration. The pack rust is what originally caused most of the deficiencies on this bridge.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 276, 2017, authorizing the mayor to execute a permanent easement on Ottumwa Christian School property for Washington Apartments storm sewer installation. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 276, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented. Sorry, Mayor.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Larry.
Washington Apartments is required to manage their stormwater runoff for the new facility that's going to be built at 539 West 4th Street. The adjoining site is combined storm and sanitary sewer. An agreed stormwater pipeline route was established with the city involving the city right-of-way and crossing the Ottumwa Christian School property near McLean Street to connect to the dedicated storm system. This will allow us to cross when we build that section and tie into the upper end of the FEMA project.
Any questions for Larry? I was at one of the meetings when the architects and engineering people were there, and again, I think it was a very good solution, and appreciate staff coming up with some good ideas to help them get that project moving. So,
well, one of the things this will allow, they won't have to do on-site storage or underground storage, which is very expensive. We're going to work with them on that system as far as pulling some of the public intakes, sizing the pipe to where we can pull some additional storm and get it down to the truly separated storm. So it's a joint project on both ends of the storm system.
okay. All right, ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 278, 2017, approving the quote for the Water Pollution Control Facility diffuser performance analysis. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 278, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Cam. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This diffuser performance analysis will be unlike ones we've done before. This one will be of a greater magnitude, and it is necessary to analyze the mixing and dilution percentage of the water pollution control facility effluent into the Des Moines River. Our consulting engineer, HDR, will utilize the University of Iowa Hydraulic Research Group to conduct the study. Again, this will be more detailed than previous studies where the dye testing is used and visually observed. It's important to determine how effective the diffuser is and whether a better performance may keep ammonia standards from being mandated in our NPDES permit. After this performance analysis, the report will be submitted to DNR, and this will be during the time of 45 days that are allowed for the comment period for our draft permit. And I do have a short video, and this will just show when we have conducted the performance analysis ourselves, and it's just observation based. It's a visual. We've done this with a drone the last couple of years. And you can see across where the water's coming out, that's actually the diffuser. There are 30 ports. When we did this in August, we only had flow that you could visually see coming out of 18. You'll see the dye starting on the left, and that's the furthest north port. The first 3 ports are 10 feet apart. After that, they are 5 feet apart until you get to the south end of the diffuser. The diffuser is 175 feet long, and the span of the river at that point is approximately 650 feet. And it's required we do this analysis every year as part of our permit. That started with our permit in 2012. Years prior to the last 2, when we have used the drone, we would be out in the river in a canoe. We actually were in this one also. We have to measure, there you can see the canoe. We have to measure the flow in the dye plume itself. We also measured flow going across the river at 3 different points and checking the depth. The formula that has been provided by DNR for the zone of initial dilution is at the 100 feet mark downstream from the diffuser. And so that's where, those are the numbers we have used. They would like to see in their guidelines not only at 100 feet, but flow samples, or not samples, but measurements at 500 feet, 1,000, 2,000, and possibly down further to 3,000. So as the drone goes up here in a little bit, you'll see that the dye actually seems to stay pretty much in the middle, and that's what we can see. We do kind of a batch dump of the dye. It's a non-toxic, harmless dye, and so that's what you can visually see. The study will include use of fluorometric meters, and they'll be able to measure the dye inside or down in the water to see if it's actually mixing out further to the sides and what it is appearing to be visually. And again, like I said, you can only see flow coming out of 18 of the ports in this one. Hopefully the study that will be done will show that you have mixing that you cannot visually see. The dye will be put in this time, it'll be metered in, so you will not actually see the dye coming out of the ports like we did in this video.
Are there any questions for Cam?
Yes.
Councilman Myers?
Okay. Yes, Cam.
Yes.
This is confusing. But between this one, this request for 43,000.
Yes.
And then the next item that'll come up that is for the cleaning.
Correct.
I guess I'm a little confused. A couple of things. Some of the ports were gone. Some parts of the diffuser were buried by up to 3 feet.
Correct. And we'll show that. I've got another video when we go over the diffuser cleaning itself.
Okay.
And that's why we had to have this cleaned before HDR comes in with University of Iowa tomorrow. If it's not clean, then it's not going to do any good to spend this money on this study. So we had to have it cleaned. And like you mentioned, they found some of the ports, the duckbill ports were actually missing. They replaced those. And then some of the ports were actually under about 3 feet of sand and rock. Some of the rock, one of the divers that we had, pretty stout guy, and he had trouble moving some of the rocks. So
Okay, so I guess, again, if we were testing, is it the ammonia we were testing at 100 feet, which was incorrect?
we're just testing the mixing of all of our effluent in the receiving stream.
Okay, and so if we test every year, how come we didn't know ports were missing and that it was buried?
This is, well, we don't normally, we do the testing, the dye test, and you can visually see when you are not coming out of those ports. But the divers, you know, if you don't have them come in every year, and we just started this in 2012 with the dye testing. Before that, those ports have been in since 96, the diffuser since 96, 97, and they've never been cleaned. Wow. So there's considerable amount. Every time the river is up and you have more flowing, you have a lot of sand and sediment and rock. And then we had the river come up this year, and then it was down for a while the Ottumwa Waterworks did their work with the dam. And then when they opened that back up, you can tell that they actually had a lot of sediment flow downstream again.
Okay, and so there's 43,000 and then the cleaning in the next one. Overall, the importance of this diffuser working properly, that's pretty important to JBS, isn't it?
It's important to both of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, yes. I'm sorry, just one item, Cam, and as you indicated, the testing is taking place tomorrow and on Thursday. And just to put into context a little bit, I think council can remember this council meeting we had. I believe that was back in June, and the discussion, and it was a special meeting, a work session meeting. At that, Cam, as you recall, I think council will as well. determinations were being made about whether or not we would be able to create additional capacity at the plant without taking on, quite frankly, construction costs. And this is probably a little bit above and beyond, Cam, obviously, the work that we're talking about here, but I think you've done a good job of lining this up in terms of our ammonia limits. And at that meeting, you recall when Brian Bach from HDR was there, he made the comment that in the state of Iowa, the ammonia limits are not something that, quite frankly, falls under their purview, something they look at apparently that is now under their purview. I was just curious, and not to put you on the spot because Brian was one that mentions, but the issue of ammonia limits seems to play a significant role in the NDPS permit. Having said that, can you put in context a little bit this issue of ammonia limits, and again, how it appeared to be that wasn't something that was on their radar screen? And I know this past fall when we were at the Iowa League of Cities meeting, Councilman Rowe and I had visited a little bit with Brian about what was going to have to be done. And it sounded like the ammonia limits were back on the radar screen. So if you can put it in context a little bit, that issue of ammonia and ammonia limits.
Sure. Since only 18 of the ports were working on this past analysis, and in 2016, we also did not have full flow out of all of our diffuser. The DNR looks at that, and then they assign waste load allocations, which are all the different things you have going out, what your limits are set at. We have never had ammonia limits in the past. With the shared diffuser, that was kind of the agreement when that was built before my time, or before I started with the city, with XL at that time, the meat packer. And so it's important that we be able to have not only what they have going out in the river, but what we have going out into the river, meet all of our limits. So until 2012, before we had the diffuser performance analysis, that was never studied whatsoever as far as what your effluent is, except for the daily sampling that we do in the plant. So this will just make sure if we have a full flowing diffuser and we don't have any ports that are blocked and the diffuser itself is not blocked, then we will probably not have the waste load allocation of ammonia limits in our permit. So we would kind of like to keep it at that so we don't have one more thing that will be limiting on what we can have flow out.
Cam, I recall back in 2014, we had some question about maintenance of the diffuser. Are we doing that solely as a city, or does JBS participate in that?
I have spoken with them. I actually spoke with City Attorney Keith today. I tried calling Charles Heisel. I could not reach him this week. Actually, today I tried again. We are looking at, and I've met with them, and they are not opposed to paying their share, and that's what we need to get finalized. When I spoke with City Attorney Keith today, I couldn't remember if we had talked about putting that in an ordinance, if we were going to put that in the contract, or if we're going to put that in as a diffuser rate for users. So.
Okay. Good. Any other questions, Matt?
I got a quick question, Kim. So when we do this testing, that's critical to determining whether, we continue on denitrifying and not. Is this diffuser going to be working appropriately to take the test results and make them accurate?
It should.
Okay.
We televised, or they televised as they did some of the cleaning. Again, we'll show you what some of the ports actually look like when they're buried, and so we should be able to see what it looks like when it should be flowing. With the changing of the river, with high river levels, instead of cleaning once a year, we may have to have that cleaned twice a year, and hopefully at a much lesser price than what this one was. So
awesome. Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.
Okay, got your questions and comments? Okay, take the roll then.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 279, 2017, approving the quote for the Water Pollution Control Facility diffuser cleaning. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 279, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Okay. Go ahead, Cam.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The cleaning of the diffuser is vital for both the flow of the effluent from water pollution control to the Des Moines River, and also for adequate mixing from the full length of the diffuser in the river. A preliminary search for the diffuser ports found that some were buried under 3 feet of sand and rock. 5 of the duckbill ports were missing. Not only were some of the ports not able to open, some were not even found upon initial inspection. And if we can play at 8:30 mark. These are filmed underwater. There you can actually see one of the diffusers. And those are called duckbill diffusers. And they will open. They're in a vertical position. They open with the flow of water going out. When you have too much sand and rock around them, they get to where they will not even open. And some of them, there will be one that you'll see toward the end, you can barely even see, and it does have so much material around it. That's why we weren't flowing out some of the ports. Okay, 1345. This one's actually one of the ports, and the duckbill is actually missing. So anytime you have low flow and you don't have a lot of water going out, any sand and sediment that's flowing by will actually just sit right down inside. And that's why we've had so much material inside the 30-inch diffuser pipe. And then 2715, please. And when they're doing the cleaning, they actually have a large compressor on shore, a long hose or cable going out to where the divers are. And so after they get one clean there, you can see just the top part of the duckbill where his finger is right now. You can see it's completely collapsed because of all the material around it. The white stringy thing that he had just before that, as these duckbills get older and they tend to break down in material a little bit, that is actually part of the inside of the duckbill. I actually had one. I forgot to bring it in with me tonight. But again, there's the duckbill, and that answers the question why we weren't flowing out. And so not only is it filled on the outside, the inside of the pipe was full also. So they actually blew air in, and then they pumped water and sediment and sand out while they're doing the work. So all 30 of the ports are operational now. Some of the ones like this one, they said as they were cleaning material away and they got it cleared, that after it gets compacted, when it gets a lot of material in there and it gets compacted, you don't have a lot of movement of the sand. But once you start removing that, even after they got these cleaned, you have more sand moving in all the time, just with the flow of the river. We're pretty low flow right now. Tomorrow, I think, is supposed to be under 1,500 cubic feet a second, which is ideal for the diffuser performance analysis. So, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam.
And Merry Christmas.
You too.
Ordinance number 3136, 2017, amending Chapter 23 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic by deleting sections 23.3, 23.198, and 23.201, and inserting new sections 23.66 and 23.198.1 of the Municipal Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation A, pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3136, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Joni, you're going to give us an update?
I am. Thank you, Your Honor. Since the city code is incorporating much of the state's traffic laws, it was necessary to delineate which code sections are applicable to comply with the state clerk of court's EDMS computer filing requirements. In addition, there were some code sections in this recodification we just did that should not have been taken out of our code, such as the duty to notify the city if stop signs or lamp posts are damaged in an accident and where it's permissible to park a vehicle in the city. Finally, a section was added to give the police department more latitude to tow illegally parked vehicles, as well as making it clear that improperly licensed vehicles and business sales stock, in other words, vehicles that are for sale with our used car dealers, are not allowed to be parked on our city streets or in residential zones. There are a number of used car dealers who do not have sufficient space on their lots for their vehicles, and these are ending up being parked on our city streets. Under this provision, these vehicles can now be towed and the business owners ticketed. So that's the first part of this request tonight, is to update our ordinance, just dealing with the traffic laws. We will be bringing back to you, hopefully in January, corrections regarding our city streets, stop signs, bus stops, transit zone, and I'm waiting for finalization of those streets from Public Works Department, and I hope I'll bring that back to you in January sometime. And then the second part of this, since we're incorporating state laws, I've updated our resolution dealing with fines for our traffic violations, as well as simple misdemeanors such as simple theft, trespass, those kind of things. And in my resolution, I've got what the old code was, what the new code is, any applicable state code, just a general description of what the offense would be, and then what the fine would be. So that's the second part of what we're going to be bringing to you tonight. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. It's a first step of a number of changes we're going to be bringing to you down the road.
Are there questions for Joni? I would make one comment, Joni, in reviewing that. I questioned if some of those fines ought to be re-examined. They were, I thought, very insignificant, impersonating a police officer, for example. I think that ought to be significantly higher than it's stated right now. It just seems to me we need to send a message. If you do this, you're going to pay for it.
We're somewhat limited by state law, since these are simple misdemeanors. So that's part of why they're what they are.
Okay. Another thing for our legislature to deal with. Any other questions for Joni? So the motion is to approve the first consideration. Are you ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Recommendation B, waive the second and third considerations, pass and adopt ordinance number 3136, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Any questions for Joni on this? We normally don't do waiving, but under the circumstances. Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 269, 2017, setting and fixing minimum fines for violations of specific sections of the municipal code of the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 269, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Any questions for Joni on this? All right, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3137, 2017, amending Chapter 7 entitled Animals and Fowl by deleting Section 7.8 and inserting new Section 7.8 of the Municipal Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation A, pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3137, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Are you going to take this, Joni?
I believe I am, Your Honor. Councilmember Strebe came into my office Thursday morning and requested that this change be presented to council tonight. And what it does, the current animal ordinance provides that if there's a dead animal or injured animal on public property within the city limits, that basically the police department would be the ones to remove those dead animals or injured animals. It was requested that we present an ordinance tonight that changed that to basically provide that public works employees would be responsible for picking up dead or injured animals on streets or in the public right of way, while parks employees would be responsible for picking up dead or injured animals in parks or on other public property. And the rationale behind that is, of course, our police officers are short-staffed. Are somewhat short-staffed and are in their uniforms, and it was thought that it would be better use of their time to be dealing with crime in our community. So this is before you. I did some preliminary research on road use tax, whether public works employees could remove those, and I think under the Iowa Constitution that this would be an appropriate use of road use tax, actually, because they're required to, public works employees are required to maintain and supervise those roadways in our communities. There's a court case, there's no court case specifically on point on this particular issue, but there is a court case, Iowa Supreme Court case that basically said that a daycare facility, road use tax could be used to finance a daycare facility. So based upon preliminary research, we've also checked with the Allers firm. I think it's permissible to do this. I also double checked with our police business rep this afternoon, and he indicated that in all of his police departments around the state that he works with, the standard practices that public works employees do remove these animals, and that if there's a dead or injured animal, a police officer could be called to the scene. They would move the animal to the side of the road, and public works would be called to dispose of the animal. So that's what was provided. It's before you tonight. I'll be glad to answer any questions, and you can discuss it.
If I may, first.
Councilman Strebe, go ahead.
We decided that on the last meeting of last year, and in an effort or spirit of full disclosure and transparency, I feel like we got that wrong, and I feel like we owe it to our citizens to get it right this time. And I want to inform you that this is not a personal decision, but it's something that has bothered me. We made that decision. I think that every one of us up here would agree that if one of our citizens or their children was injured or killed when our police officers were taking a dead animal to the dump, then that would all be on those of us who decided that that should be their responsibility. It's not a personal decision. With that said, that responsibility is not beneath anyone either. Not one officer has ever complained about doing their duty. They're sworn to duty. They do their job. I haven't received one complaint from any of our police officers about having that be their responsibility. And it's this councilman's hope that if this passes tonight, that the departments and the personnel that are responsible for this have the same can-do attitude that our police officers have demonstrated moving forward. You know, we're fallible up here, and it's on us. I think we got that one wrong. But our commitment to public safety is not just about numbers. It's about what are the assigned roles and responsibilities of our officers. And we owe it to our citizens to make decisions that are appropriate and promote their well-being. And I think this is one of those things that we need to take another look at and hopefully get right this time. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah. Skip?
Wasn't there at one time, it's my belief, that there was a budget for, it It was in the health department area, I think, when the health department overseen the animal deal. There was a budget that I understand was transferred to the PD. Do you have that budget, Chief?
We have budgeted one officer position to not only just pick up dead animals. That's a small portion of his responsibilities. That'd be Jeff Williams. He's got the 3/4 ton truck. He's out picking up cats and dogs. He's setting traps and in investigations of dog bites.
So the budget is still there.
There's no budget there specifically for us to pick up dead animals.
Okay, and my second, the way this is worded, Joni, it's picking up dead or injured animals. I don't think Public Works and Parks needs to tie into injured animals. For instance, a deer that's been hit by a car or a dog that's been hit and still alive. I'm assuming the PD will handle those if they have to be put down.
Yes, we would.
And I'm of the belief, and I'm just talking for myself, it only mentions parks employees and public works employees, but I see nothing wrong with water pollution control. When they're driving down the street, if they see a dead cat, coon, or something in the street, I see nothing wrong with them picking it up and throwing it in their dumpster. I think this could, parks employees, if they see a dead animal in the street, pick it up. I don't think we have to call Public Works on every one of them. I think it's a simple work together situation, and that's just my belief.
Councilman Myers?
Yes, I had hoped to leave tonight without having to speak to my colleagues on the council the way I intend to go ahead and speak. But I think this is yet another example of my colleagues really not understanding the position for which they were elected. Now, I realized 12 years ago when I was elected and met with the city administrator at the time, we were instructed as council persons that if we had questions concerning any department, ordinance, or resolution type of thing, we were to go through our city administrator first, and that city administrator would get the necessary departments, whatever, together and come back to council with said information. This council, a week or two ago, in fact, increased the salary for the city administrator and said, boy, you're doing a good job, so here's a raise and here you go. And yet I find Friday when I come to City Hall to pick up this book that a city council person individually goes to the city attorney and says, I want this on the agenda for this Tuesday, and by gosh, I have 3 votes. And so put it on there. And it's like, wait a minute, there's open meeting laws too. Councilman Bob Myers never received a call or any information from any councilman concerned about this. As I think Councilman Strebe stated, this did not come from Chief McAndrew. It did not come from Officer Williams. This came from an individual council person. And again, Skip, you raised some good points that Administrator Morris mentioned several months ago that, you know, these are the types of things in this issue that he thought he could handle by talking to the various departments and work it out. And that was the last I ever heard of anything. And now all of a sudden, overnight, without any input, I thought we were a 5-person council, but I must be wrong. And I just would caution you again, council, if you're going to bypass the city administrator, who then goes to the departments, gets you good, usable information to then make a just decision, then in my opinion, you're just going the wrong direction.
Okay, Bob, I have to reply to that because I have spoken with the city administrator on numerous occasions over the last 9 months about this very issue. many times. I've had a half dozen conversations with Andy about this. This wasn't made in a vacuum. No open meetings laws were violated. There was never a time when there was a quorum where this was discussed. I've talked to other council members individually, and I've spoken with the city administrator about this on numerous occasions. Our public safety officers are already stretched thin. We're in a situation that has been revealed to us that's almost a crisis situation. For them to be taking time away from the citizens and from protecting our city to take on these sort of responsibilities just doesn't seem to make common sense to me. And I'd like to know what your arguments are for why you believe that our officers should be taking dead animals to the dump. What good rationale can you tell our tax-paying citizens is there for them to be doing that?
Thank you for asking me, and I do want to answer that. And I also want to answer it that this question is coming from a councilman that asked a committee to work on fireworks, but forgot to tell us, by the way, committee, the only conclusion I want you to come back with is ban fireworks.
I didn't say ban fireworks. I didn't want the amount of days extended. I never said I wanted to ban fireworks.
You said at the council meeting.
Bob, that's not correct. I never said I wanted to ban fireworks.
Gentlemen, let's remain civil here and
I didn't want to
give each
extend
other
the number
time to
of days.
respond.
Yeah, you said we told you only one day. We thought we were meeting to come up with some type of a compromise or something, but that wasn't the case. Answering your questions, Vic, pretty simple. Back to my point about using your city administrator. I am fairly certain that at one time, the health department handled the animals. I think at one time, then the police vehicle, the truck came into the use, and as Chief McAndrew said, the officer at some point in the budget, that was one of the questions. And then also, Victor, I'd throw in, had the city administrator had the time to go through, you said 9 months, but had the city administrator had the time to go to the departments, he might have been able to ask Public Works the very question that Skip asked. If it's injured, who's going to take care of that? That's not what this says. So all I'm saying is, I think you jumped too quick. This is too complex an issue to just, by the way, on a Thursday, city administrator's out of town or whatever, I want this done and I want it done Tuesday.
Okay, Councilman Rowe?
You know, I seem to be getting in the middle of a fight here that I wasn't invited to, but I want to clarify a couple points too. Councilman Myers, you said we're doing what we shouldn't be doing, but if memory serves me correctly, policy setting is exactly what the job of city council is. I don't see where you're saying that we're overstepping our bounds. This is the goal or the role of city council, is to set policy. And I want to reiterate what Councilman Strebe said. This is not a new issue. This didn't come up this week. We've been talking about this, if memory serves me correctly. And again, to echo what Councilman Strebe said, we did make an error when we did the animal ordinance. And this was brought up, I think, about 2 weeks after that animal ordinance, the final consideration passed, that this error was made, and we wanted to get it taken care of. It's come to this point because it hasn't been taken care of to this point. And you were part of those. It's kind of upsetting that you have been part of these conversations, yet you're saying you're the only council person that hasn't been communicated with, when I have personally had these conversations with you. And to the point of you saying that we have bypassed what the city administrator's role is, the only reason that I'm aware of that Councilman Strebe went to Joni Keith to begin with is because this has been brought up. And if you want to bring up Administrator Morris's review, which I think is a little bit unprofessional and uncouth on your part.
Sure you do.
Then let's talk about the fact that these types of issues were brought up during that during that evaluation. And that comes to the other point of let's let's try to work together as a community. You know, as Councilman Strebe said, the officers, I've talked to Officer Williams on several occasions. Not once has he complained about picking up a carcass off of the street. But now, since it's switching departments, all of a sudden it's this huge deal. So if we want to talk about working together as a team, why is it okay for one person that happens to be in a uniform that has to go to house calls and things like that? Why is it okay for them to get possibly dirty, but somebody else that has to do it, it's all of a sudden an issue?
Okay, so I get 5 minutes, Mayor, or whatever, to answer a couple of those.
You can respond, and then I'm going to make a few comments.
Okay, and the why is, wait a minute, who said it was a problem? The police didn't say it was a problem about their uniforms. We did. Secondly, policy. You know, Matt and I have this discussion, and we will always disagree. Policy means yes, but you hired a city administrator to administrate
that works for us
and to work with all the departments and divisions. So there isn't this divisiveness over, oh, so it depends on the council. If they have a special interest, I'm going to go to them and I'll get this done. I can go around. I think the city administrator has staff meetings every week to try to get the communication and the staff to work together. So obviously, I mean, in your vision, I'm wrong that the city administrator that we pay that kind of money should not bring these kind of issues back to us, either at a work session or in an open meeting. You say what you want to, and I'll say, okay, so you guys thought this was okay. And by the way, either I'll give you a little credit. Maybe it's Bob's last meeting. He's gone. We don't need to talk to him anyway. Or it's just the way you work. You don't go through the city administrator. You do apparently talk at some time and come up with these kinds of decisions.
I think the important thing here is council does set policy, and we're changing a past practice by making a different policy decision. I liked what Councilman Stevens made when he said we really need to see this as a community effort so that whoever is on the spot can respond to it. Now, if it's a live animal, then I think we're going to have to call the police, and it may be that they'll have to be put down. But if it's a dead animal, I think it does make sense that anybody in a city vehicle that has the capacity, a pickup or a dump truck or whatever, should stop and get the animal and make the streets safe and clean. And we shouldn't have to be arguing about that here at a council meeting. I think it's a simple decision to say all of our staff have a responsibility to keep our streets clean and safe, period. So I think if we do that, we can work with Andy and the police and Public Works to get this thing ironed out, and I'm sure it will be talked about at future staff meetings. Is there anything else anybody wants to add? Matt?
Yeah, I would say I appreciate the comments, Mayor. I agree with those wholeheartedly. And Councilman Roan, Councilman Strebe, you have my support on this. I hate to think we're being paid $300 a month to do absolutely nothing but follow every recommendation. I think we're put in place as a council to be the last line of defense. If there's something that needs to be added, changed, or modified, we do that. We hear from the people every day. And so I think, from what I'm hearing, we have no real use up here as a council, but I think that's wrong. I think we do. And I think we have legislative power. I think we have, ability to set policy. And I would hate to be overpaid at $300 a month for not being able to figure out who picks up a deceased animal on our roads. So I support the ordinance. I support, Mayor, what you said, and Administrator Morris about, working together. It is a collective effort. We go above and beyond. Most of us council members, we don't have to go to meetings all day long. We don't have to sit through, weeks of league trainings, but we do it because we know it's the right thing to do. It's good for the good of the firm. And so I have every, confidence in our personnel and staff, department heads. They'll work it out. We'll set the policy and they'll carry it out. That's the way it is. And I have firm confidence that they'll work out a workable plan. It may deviate somewhat, but at least the general principle is here, and I think that is our job to do. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just comment on this very briefly. This is part of a discussion that we had earlier this week, and certainly it's up to council. It's a legislative decision. And just to be clear on that, my job is to carry forth the recommendations, suggestions, and policies that the council implements. I think it goes without saying that this is an issue that has a number of items in the ordinance, the way it's set forth right now, has a number of items that need to be addressed. First of all, obviously, the issue of injured animals was discussed at some length. The other item that has to be pointed out is that at present, the police department has the vehicle to transport these. So think about this in the this is why I'm recommending, and council can certainly make the legislative decision, but I would recommend you either table or postpone it. And here's why. The issue of the injured animals, the vehicles, if you think about it, picture, if you could, for just a minute, let's just say that Officer Williams responds to a situation in a house where there is domesticated animal and there is some disturbance, and he's asked to come and see what is wrong and how that issue can be straightened out. If he's walking back to his vehicle and there is a dead animal that's on the road, the way this is written, what he's going to have to do then, he's going to have to call probably Public Works at that point, Public Works, and say, I need a Public Works employee to come out here and pick this up. I've picked up my fair share of dead animals, and I can tell you it's an exercise. You can get it on a shovel. It's maybe 3 minutes. So I have some questions. I think it just goes without saying the logic of having him call someone when someone else is right there. I can't speak for all of the departments. I know that in the street department, Steve Edgington and I have talked about this repeatedly. It's also a conversation. Gene has pulled his fair share of dead carcasses off the park property. So that is being done. I just have some questions and concerns then about the larger issue that I need staff to work out, and that this is something that council in fact wants to do. I need to work with the departments and figure out what we're going to do with that vehicle that is assigned right now to the police department, what undertakings and specific activities then that the other departments are going to undertake. Usually when you see a dead animal, the employees usually throw it on the back of a vehicle, throw it in the dumpster. It's fairly simple. That still remains to be resolved. If council in fact wants to migrate that which is your call, where you want to switch that responsibility then as a share between Public Works and Parks, that's your call. I still think the program works well. Councilman Strebe and I have talked about this at some length. So it's really not I don't want to go into great length to talk about what my opinion is on the merits and demerits of switching this. I do feel, though, that there's some items that need to be ironed out, particularly with vehicles and transport, that just are not set forth clearly in this. That's why I would recommend you either table or postpone.
To me, it's obvious that vehicle was meant for Jeff Williams when he's available to pick up live stray animals. That's what that vehicle was meant for.
And not to interrupt, but Councilman Stephen raised a good point, and that's just right. So if we follow the confines of what's in the ordinance before us tonight, then what happens to that vehicle?
It stays with the PD.
Still need an animal control officer.
And Jeff, when he gets fully staffed and Jeff gets back on duty, it'll be the same as it was.
Well, and again, that's up to council's decision. In most of the cities I've been in, most of the cities I've managed, just to be honest with you, in most instances, that is something usually a street department or Public Works would handle in terms of picking up our dead animals. This city's a little different because we have this vehicle, and then you have other departments that are also picked up. Make this point and be quiet. You have them picking up the lion's share of the dead animals. That is the police department. If he remains with that vehicle, then certainly a question I think the folks, I can't speak for the folks in the street department, Public Works, is what do they do then absent that vehicle when they show up at a site and there is a deer or a large dog or something that is dead? Because that's not something that's easy to pick up, quite frankly, with a shovel.
To that point, yeah.
Mark.
So this is going to be a silly question. Hopefully the police chief can answer this without cracking a smile. The truck that you have for the police department has it's elevated off the ground. It has cages, right?
Yes, the truck was special ordered. It has air conditioning in the back. That truck is geared for hauling live animals. The part of the truck that is geared towards hauling deer, it consists of a rack that we slide in the hitch on the back of that truck.
Okay.
But the truck was purchased and specially built to keep animals alive in the back while we're transporting them.
So here's my silly question. Why do we need a cage for dead animals? Can't we use a pickup truck for that?
Yes, we used a pickup truck for years.
But you could use a pickup truck for a raccoon or a cat or anything else that happens to be dead. They're probably not going to escape. They don't really need a cage, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess that kind of answers the question about what to do with the truck, because we can use any old pickup truck or any old dump truck to pick up dead animals.
Mr. Mayor, just one other point to that. I know on the day that I picked up that dead animal and Officer Williams stopped by, he was in the larger vehicle. In addition to it also transporting these animals, in addition to that, there's also room in that vehicle, which the street department does not have. There's also room in that vehicle, as you did at that time, picked up that dead possum and carried it away. So it's not like it's an air-conditioned moving condominium. You can put dead animals in those compartments. That's a part of that vehicle. I just want to emphasize about the importance of that vehicle.
Right, but I guess my larger point here goes back to the staffing issue that we have at the police department. If Officer Williams, which he is doing right now, running a regular beat, is told that there is a dead animal that needs picked up and disposed of, and please correct me if I'm incorrect on this, he has to go back to the police department, he has to grab the truck, then he has to go grab the animal, then he has to go to the landfill or to a dumpster, whatever, dispose of the animal, then go back to the police department, grab his regular vehicle, and get back out on the street. When we have a public works or a parks department or anybody for that matter that happens to have a city-owned pickup truck, they don't have to dispose of their other duties for essentially an hour to pick it up. They can just go pick it up, dump it, and they're in the same vehicle that they were before.
So
The process makes no sense to me the way that we're doing it right now.
So if Public Works is pouring concrete or doing safety on a street or a sewer, they just stop what they're doing. That's okay.
No.
No.
I think we're getting a little
far-fetched. We work together.
I think we're making a big mountain out of a molehill. I don't know
I
why
would
the heck
agree
we
with
can't
you.
get this thing settled and go on.
Yeah.
And it's been talked about, I know, of several months. I've talked about it to Andy in my meetings with him on Monday mornings. It's been talked about for a long time. This is kid stuff, fooling around with this. We need to get it done, period.
Okay, so what's your pleasure? You have a motion and it's been made and seconded to pass the first consideration of this ordinance.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yes, Kevin.
I
We'll
think
recognize
it's
you.
essentially, it seems like that we're talking about the difference between refuse pickup and street cleaning and animal control. Now, obviously, animal control is most appropriately handled by the police because it could be a dangerous situation. But if we're talking about street cleaning or refuse cleanup, I can tell you that in our department, our code enforcers are, everywhere during the day. They're all over the city. So, I mean, certainly our people would be available and wouldn't be pulling off something that was significant that they could be doing otherwise or would be doing otherwise. I mean, we could be at least a point of contact in planning to say, give them a call, and we could either, one of our folks could pick up their driving trucks, or they could contact, with a phone call, contact Public Works, see if someone is in the area. But the important thing about police picking up refuse or dead animals is that there's an expectation of protocol with the uniform and otherwise, and you don't want to, I don't want to say get messy, but the point is picking up dead animals could be a messy situation. But as far as who's roaming around the city the most during the day in a really disparate way in different locations, code enforcement is really obviously doing more of that than anybody. So that's just one suggestion. I do think that the city administrator and staff have to work it out, but I was just going to throw that in there, that it's really essentially the difference between street cleaning and refuse collection and public safety when it comes to animal control, because that truck is an animal control unit specifically. But
Okay, thank you for those comments.
Teamwork, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. That's good input. I appreciate you getting up there and doing that. It seems to me that we basically, we're out of the mood apparently as a council to have our police officers pick up animals, dead animals, deceased animals, any way, shape, or form due to the, number one, the uniforms. Number two, I have a problem with one officer picking up a deer that may be more suitable for a heavy equipment, such as a bobcat or something, or two people. Now we're calling out two officers for a 200-pound deer. So it makes no sense to me. But if I think staff can work it out, but I just don't want to see our police officers doing it. I don't think Councilmember Strebe does. I think that's the takeaway here. The directive is to figure it out, I guess. I mean, and come back maybe with another ordinance, or we can amend this one now. But let's not have our police officers doing this. Our city attorney just told us that a majority of the cities like us don't do this. I mean, we're special, all right? We're special because we don't ever embrace new change and what other communities have done to make things better. So I fully support this ordinance. And either way the council wants to go tonight, I'm in favor.
Well, the motion on the floor is to pass the first consideration of this ordinance. So you're going to have to either vote it up or vote it down or amend it. Are you ready to vote? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
No.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carried. Recommendation B, waive the second and third considerations, pass and adopt ordinance number 3137, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments on that, or are you ready to vote? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
No.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Lively debate and important issues that we are going to work together as a team to get done. I think that's the takeaway. Lastly, I'd like to, is there anybody in the audience that wants to address an item that's not on the agenda or that affects city business? Okay, thank you. Last comment, I hope that most of you noticed in the paper, the Water Warriors got to go to state, and they were the small student group that came and made a presentation to the city council. And I think we should acknowledge our students at Liberty, Liberty and Evans, who did an outstanding job and represented our community very well. So hats off to the Water Warriors. With that, this is our last official meeting of this year. I'd like to wish all of the families and staff a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 18. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I would just like to make one more comment.
Sure.
I know we already had done this earlier tonight, but I'd like to once again thank and commend Councilman Myers for his service to the city of Ottumwa.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
And I have 7:38.